You're listening to the Favorite Marriage Podcast, a place where you and your spouse can experience God's favor on your forever.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Favorite Marriage Podcast. We are your hosts, Monty and Jeannine Mora, and we are currently in a 3-part series called The Seasons of Marriage. This is our 3rd episode, so we are so happy you are joining us. And for those of you who have watched Part 1 and Part 2 and have shared your experience and some of the testimonies of what you've heard and how you've been able to apply them to your life, it has been encouraging to us. Yeah. So thanks for joining in. And here's Part 3 today.
Yeah, so Part 1, we talked about the first 5 years. Mm-hmm. Part 2, we talked about the 5 to 15 years. And we're going to be looking at the years 15 to 30 years of marriage.
Yeah.
And so
that's where we're at.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 15 to 30 years. And we are going to be celebrating our 29th year, September 1st. So we know this season very well.
Mm-hmm. We sure do.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're experts in it, but we've had some victories, but we've also had some learning experiences as well, like any other marriage and any other season.
Like we've said, there have been moments in this season of marriage where it's been very messy. And there have been moments where it's been pretty marvelous.
I agree.
But nonetheless, I think we can really speak into this season of marriage simply because we've been living in it. We're living in it right now. So why don't we go ahead and just dive right into the content?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So Jeannine, we're thinking of the seasons of marriage, 15 to 30 years. And, you know, obviously I was reading an article the other day, and the article was talking about playing for the long game. And, you know, people mention that phrase, especially like when they're like, especially if they're dating, they're like, are you playing for the long game or the short game? And marriage, we would consider this part of the marriage season the long game. And this is the long game simply because you're thinking very, very future-minded about your marriage. You, as a husband and wife, are really like, you know, in that grind of learning. You're in your careers now. You're well established. Your children are a little bit older now, and you're really playing the long game right now in marriage. And this is a pretty critical part of marriage as well.
Yeah. When you think about, since you're on the idea of sports, and you think about when people play the long game, in order for you to endure the long game, there's a lot of things that have to take place physically, emotionally, mentally to be in that mindset that you're going to finish. Like I think of those, not myself, but those who like to run, like you ran, right? And when you had to run marathons or
long distance.
Yeah, have you ever run a marathon? No, you haven't, huh?
No.
Well, it seemed like a marathon.
Just marriage is a marathon, but
yeah, but you know, runners who are running a race, they have to have a mindset of endurance. Like they need to see that the finish line. You know, there's a mental piece that is just so crucial to finishing that. Wouldn't you say that? Like, can you?
Oh yeah.
Talk about.
Yeah.
Your racing days.
So I remember long distance races were, and this was back in high school back in the 80s, and the long distance race was 3.2 miles. And so you have to pace yourself in mile 1, mile 2, and then mile 3, that final mile. You really have to like pace yourself. You have to prepare yourself mentally because you're running a long race. I mean, if I just went out and sprinted the first mile with all the energy and force and I'm full throttle on, I'm not going to last for the race, you know, for the remainder of the race. So yeah, you have to have you're running for the long game. You're running for the long race. And that's marriage.
Mm-hmm. When you say pace yourself, how can we relate that to marriage? What do you mean by when you paced yourself? Were you very conscious of where you would speed up and where you would slow down?
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, so you would always, your first mile, you have a certain time limit for every mile. So your first mile,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, your first mile might be a little bit higher higher mileage, I guess, or faster pace. Your second mile, you might be more relaxed. And then your third mile usually is your best mile. And then, of course, at the end, you have to like what they call the kick. And the kick is like when you're just like sprinting full on and you're trying to get across the finish line. But it's like in marriage, you
Yeah.
know, so you have to pace yourself in marriage. And if you are just full on, throttle on from day one,
Right.
you know, you're going to burn out. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, and I guess I think when what you're relating that to is just the grind, the grind
grind.
part, right?
Yeah,
And just making
absolutely.
sure to have moments and times where you're able just to breathe and enjoy life and take vacations and enjoy family and
Yeah.
pace yourself through, even if you're talking baby steps, like pacing yourself through the day and then a week and then a month. And I know a lot of parents pace themselves through the school year. Like that's a
Oh,
good
yeah.
pacing,
Analogy.
yeah, in the time frame. Like, and right now, you know, like people are thinking, oh, it's almost the end of the year, and so you're pacing yourself towards that finish line. And I think it's the same way in all seasons of marriage, and the one that we're talking about today, that 15 to 20 years. You've done a lot. You've done a lot already.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of those years were like rush, 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 or sprint, sprint, sprint. And other times you did have those opportunities just to relax and, you know, just take time for each other. Or you had to make time sometimes.
Yeah.
But those of you who are sitting in that 15 to 20 year mark, just think about like where you're at right now and what you're doing. Is your lifestyle right now just fast and hurried up and just trying to get, you know, make the next dollar or, you know, trying to get to the next game
Yeah.
or, you know, and just being careful to stop and make sure that you don't burn out,
Right. Yeah.
because this is a very easy place to do that. you
Very
know?
easy. Yeah. And Janine, like the 15 to 30 year mark have taught us a lot. There's a lot of lessons that we learned in there.
Yeah.
Obviously, one of the lessons is learning how to pace yourself. But I think a key lesson for us, and of course, you know, however you want to weigh in on this is fine. But I think the key lesson for us has been building like consistency in the little things, because, you know, obviously the first 5 years is the foundation. That 5 to 15 is more of the growing years, and now these are the years where things are really starting to form and fashion, and your marriage and your family is like really strong.
Yeah.
But I think being consistent in the little tiny things over a long period of time during this phase of marriage, I think has been very important, you know. Don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. And they build a foundation for the bigger things, like being consistent in the little things. It's like I think of the pavers outside in our yard, you know, like they're small, but if you have a consistent path, it creates a pathway that is firm, you know. It's
Sure.
and you can build on it.
Yeah. So what would be like the little things? Like when we say consistency in the little things, you know, obviously.
Little but big too, because I
Yeah.
think of prayer, being consistent in prayer, consistent in showing your family, your children, how important prayer is, how important church is, how important reading your word is. Like those are foundational.
Sure.
So I wouldn't call them the little things; they're big things.
Yeah.
But I think also just the opportunity to show your family, your children, the love between you and your spouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just the I love yous and the kisses when you come home, you know, that brings a sense of security
It
to
does.
kids.
Yeah.
It really does. And they know when you're fighting too. They know when it's not right, and they know that something's up with mom and dad. So,
You think they knew?
oh yeah.
Kids know, yeah.
Yeah, they do.
But what about like consistency and just the communication piece? I mean, that has to be ongoing. The consistency of just being faithful to each other, affirming each other, appreciating each other. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's those little tiny things that you just do over and over and over.
Yeah.
And to a couple that can kind of seem mundane, but really it's part of building into that strong foundation into your
Yeah.
marriage. Wouldn't you say?
I would say.
Yeah.
Also, another little thing that I think of is, and we kind of said this already, but taking that time for family time
Yeah.
away from the hustle and bustle, and for our lives, our kids were always around a field, a baseball field, soccer field,
Football
football
field.
field, whatever it was. And we were like, oh, this is family time. But no, it's not really. I mean,
No.
yes, it is a time of building memories and just showing support for one another, but getting away and taking those moments of just getting away and going to the lake or going to the mountains or
Yeah.
saving up for a big trip, like, traveling to somewhere fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think a couple in this stage too, as I'm thinking, they need to guard against like the spirit of apathy.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is the long stretch of marriage.
Yeah.
That's 15 to 30 years is like 15 years. And it's very easy to like,
Yeah, I know.
for a couple to slide into in this apathy, like we're just roommates and we're just
Yeah.
day in, day out, and they lose that intimacy between each other.
And we just become like and I don't want to say boring, but I mean, it's just, you just become there.
Yeah.
And there needs to be, it's important during these times to be creative with one another and
Yeah.
to keep the excitement alive so that you don't, like you say, fall into that mundane, oh, like we're just roommates, living
Yeah.
this life and going from one day to the next. If you're in that place and you're like, it's just not exciting coming home anymore, or, just you just become, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't know. It's just something
Like stuck?
not stuck, but
No?
no, not stuck. Like I'm not stuck with you, but it just becomes, I guess, mundane is the word
Yeah.
that best describes that. And
Mm-hmm.
when you find yourself in that rut,
Yeah.
do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Become creative about showing your spouse how much you love them and you do appreciate them, and create a spark.
Sure. Yeah. That's exactly what I was just thinking. It's like, how do you
Really?
battle the apathy and the boredom and the roommate syndrome? Is be creative in creating a spark and keeping that spark between you and your spouse strong and vibrant between one another, and of course,
Yeah.
in all the previous episodes we talk about how to keep the spark going. I think we talked about it in the last episode, how to keep the spark going.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I guess that is, since it's been coming up, that's where, creating that spark in each season is important,
yeah.
not just in one particular season. I just noticed that, like, we have talked about that more so in the last 2 episodes, from
Yeah.
5 to now we're talking to 20 years.
Yeah. So what about the couples that have children and in this stage of life, how old do you think children could be during this 15 to 30 year season? I mean, they could be 15,
I'd say middle school, high school.
middle school, high school.
You
Yeah.
might have some kids already in college,
Oh, right. Yeah.
right?
So how can during this season of life, especially with from the parenting perspective, what can parents begin to do for their children during this season? Like, what would be their approach to parenting, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, definitely you're preparing. I mean, as parents, we're always preparing our children for the next season of their life.
Sure.
Right? So from toddlers to, elementary to middle school to high school, and then high school to college or adulthood. It's always a preparation So preparing them and being careful to also prepare your heart, because you've been parenting these kids for, anywhere, depending on how many children you have and
Sure.
the years between them. You could have an elementary school student all the way up to a senior in high school. I mean, or even a bigger span. Every family's different, and so you always have to be preparing your heart as well, even as husband and wife, for the releasing stage,
Yeah.
or preparing your heart for the teenage stage and the rebellion stage. I don't know if every teenager goes through that stage, but
I
mean,
think so. Yeah.
and just becoming well aware of one another's parenting styles,
Yeah.
making sure that you are all on the same page when you're parenting, but always thinking of your kids, your influence to your children.
Yeah.
How are you influencing them? They're always watching. They always have their eye on you.
Yeah.
Sometimes they judge us hard, in those times, especially when they're in those stages where they're not in agreement on what you think is best for them,
Yeah.
So yeah, just really helping one another, just support each other.
Sure. Yeah.
It's important.
I'm thinking of the phrase, and I'm going to take the analogy of parents who have children, let's say high school, and maybe transitioning into college, or not every kid's going to go to college. So let's say moving out of the home. So I'm thinking of the phrase, how does a parent to adulthood? Like making that investment into your children and teaching them really how to become adults, like developmental lifestyle things, like a work ethic, managing money, life decisions. So let's take that example. And what can parents do to help parent their children to adulthood?
Well, let me ask you that, because I answered the last question you
Yeah.
asked. Tell our listeners what that would look like.
So I would say definitely teaching your children how to have a good work ethic. I think that's important because,
Yep.
I don't know if, I think all of our children had somewhat of a job in high school and they made some sense of money, and so teaching your children how to have a work ethic. And then of course, when you go to work, you're going to get money in return. So that's a whole nother lesson of teaching your children how to manage their
Yeah.
money. Remember we talked about the live, give, save analogy,
Yeah.
where we had three buckets, or three bottles. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And we had a live bucket, a give bucket, and a save bucket. And so whenever they earn money, we'd have them put away a certain amount, a percentage of money in those buckets. If
Yeah.
you're trying to teach them how to balance their money, so I would say, obviously, balance, how to manage money, making decisions, because as they get into high school and college, they're going to be faced with a lot more decisions, than to, like, should I use a gray color crayon or white color crayon? These are now like having to make really big decisions as they're going into high school and even into college. And so I think walking your children through a good, solid decision making process, maybe even create like scenarios for them and say, hey, what would you do in this situation? I think we actually have done that as well with our kids. So those would just be a few thoughts in my mind of how
Yeah.
parents can parent to adulthood.
Yeah, I think teaching your kids how to deal with failure is very important.
True that, yeah.
We're all going to fail. And especially, I guess, in some sense, we want our kids to succeed in everything, obviously. But in some sense, we sometimes even want them to fail at little things. And it's important that we allow them to do that we're not always running in to rescue them, because they have to learn. And we would much rather them learn in the surroundings of a strong home and a family who can come beside them and help them through those failures.
Yeah.
And we've been able to see that, in our children. And it's hard. That's a hard place to be, because you don't want to see your children hurting. You don't want to see them struggle, and you want so bad to come in and help. But I think of the story, or actually it's science of like with the egg and the little birds, and if someone comes in and they take off the shell, then it actually hurts the bird. Like the whole process of them breaking through the shell is to strengthen their wings and strengthen their muscles and everything like that. Like it's a workout for a purpose. And if you see them struggling, you want so bad to come in and rescue, you might be interfering in some really good growth in their life.
Yeah.
So, and I think as parents, for us, I mean, for me as a mom, watching our kids go through very difficult situations in their life was very hard.
Yeah.
So you grow as a parent, as a person, and your children are growing all at the same time. It's different type of growth.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's necessary growth.
Yeah. I'm thinking like giving your children a safe environment to fail in.
Mm-hmm.
I think you kind of alluded to that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But you let them struggle like the little bird,
Mm-hmm.
so that they develop their muscles, I guess, their strength and everything. But you're doing it in a safe environment where your kids can say, hey, this is a safe environment where if I failed, mom and dad are going to help me work through the failures of that.
Yeah. And giving them grace.
Yeah.
I think it's so important as parents that we give our kids the grace that God gives us time after time. And, when they do fail and they make a bad decision, or they're in a season of making bad decisions, that you ask God for wisdom. When do I step in, Lord? When do I come in and give grace? Or when do I let them, just eat out of the pig's pen a little bit? Those are really tough decisions as parents, and you don't need to make them alone.
Yeah.
We're assuming if you're watching this podcast, you are married. So, look at your spouse and see them as your partner in parenting. You're not doing this alone. You shouldn't be doing it alone. If you are married and husband and wife, you're living together in the same home.
Yeah.
It should not fall on one or the other parent.
No, you got to work together as a team, especially in this season of life with parenting.
Yeah.
Another thing I was thinking of, which a lot of parents are going to relate, is dating. Your kids start dating, and then you have all this relationship tension, the first boyfriend, girlfriend, the first breakup. And we had to walk each of our children through the season of their dating life and coaching them up with selecting the right person. And there were some challenges that we ran up against when we were coaching and helping our children be wise in how they pursue relationships. And here we are, we're doing a marriage podcast. And I think one of the greatest things that a couple can do, or we could have done, is really hone in and really help our children during those stages of dating and walking through those relationship tensions, right?
Yes. Yeah. We always would tell our kids, like, trust us. We're married, but, believe what we're saying. We're not talking out of the side of our neck. We know a thing or two.
Yeah.
And sometimes they did and sometimes they didn't.
Yeah.
But thank God for his grace
Yeah.
and his mercies.
So parents, be alert. If you're in this season of marriage where you're parenting children that are beginning to date or are dating, make sure as parents, as a husband and wife, that you're together in the same team and you're nurturing and you're helping your child work through those relationships to have a healthy relationship. Because if you can teach them to have a healthy relationship as they're dating, that'll matriculate or transpire into when they're married, because those things that they're learning in dating can really help them out when they're with their future spouse as well.
And we always encouraged our kids to, like you mentioned before, like date for the long game. Like you shouldn't, do dating in the mindset of, oh, I'm just trying this relationship out for a few weeks, and then if it don't work out, then I got a whole lineup. That's not
Yeah.
not that any of our kids did that, but I'm just saying that sometimes that's the mentality of dating, people who date. It's like, if it don't work out, then we'll move on. And it was really important for us to teach our kids that this is dangerous. That is what's happening, because when you come into a relationship, you should want to have that long game.
Sure.
And long game means that you're dating to marry.
Dating to marry. Yeah. Yeah. Man, a lot of lessons, a lot of pieces of parenting in this season of marriage. And I'm sure we can go on and on and on, but let's talk about something that we are very familiar with. We're now in our, well, I'm going to say I'm 52. I won't share
I'm almost there.
Yep. And so another thing that we're beginning to see and noticing, and I think couples who have been in this 15 to 30 year of marriage, you can relate, is you have to learn to start making marriage health adjustments. Like I said, late 40s, I'm early 50s. And we are now in a stage of our life, like in our bodies, where we have to be more aware of our check engine light of this body.
Yeah.
And sometimes the check engine light comes on and we're like, what does this mean? Like, what does this icon mean? I don't even know what it's saying to me.
You could just wake up one morning and it's on. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think for this time in our life, we have really had to learn how to be patient with each other and give each other space, like we don't know from day to day, like what's going to hurt. And it's like, come on, suck it up, buttercup. That don't work anymore. It's not about just getting up and stretching and then you feel better. I mean, you're really having to take some time to care for yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
Self-care becomes really important during these years. I mean, all these years you've been caring and giving to your family, to your children. And I mean, of course, in those years you are taking care of, you're doing self-care, but it becomes the priority in this age, in this time.
Yeah.
Like really paying attention.
You really got to pay attention. Because you think about it, there are not only changes in our body, but there are changes in weight. There are changes in hair, i.e. thinner hair, losing hair. There are changes in energy, changes in libido, like your sexual drive, changes in muscle. Like it's harder to keep muscle on at this stage because skin. I mean, you go from head to toe.
Eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I mean, it's everything.
So when we talk about being watchful of the check engine light, I mean, it's more than just one area. I mean, there's all kinds of different changes going on in our body. And on top of that, like even like little tiny pieces of sickness begin to sneak in into our lives. So we've even like had some sickness challenges in our own body.
Of course, sickness can creep in at any stage of marriage and life, but it's more likely to happen during this time naturally in aging.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember 2 summers ago where we were getting ready to go to a wedding in Denver and I felt this pain in my side? Do you remember that?
And he scared me because this guy does not ever want to go to the doctor or the hospital, and he's like, I need to go.
Yeah.
I was like, oh gosh.
And guys, I'm telling you, I ended up having a kidney stone. And the pain, if you ever had a kidney stone, I've never had a kidney stone. Never had any problems with my kidneys.
They say it's like labor, but I don't know.
It felt like labor to me. I was like, And I remember having this pain in my left side, and this pain came on suddenly.
Yeah.
I mean, it went from like a 4 to like a 10 in a matter of like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I remember telling Jeannine, I think I need to go to the ER.
Yeah.
And for me to say that, she knew
It's a
something
lot.
was up. And so sure enough, went to the ER, ended up passing the kidney stone while waiting in the waiting room. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then by the time they took me back, my body was back to normal. And the doctor, ends up asking, what brought you in today? And I was like, well, I thought I had a kidney stone. I think I passed it using the bathroom. But man, that happened. I think I was maybe 49, 50 when that happened. But yeah, these are some of the things that we got to be watchful about.
So yeah, and you made adjustments to your lifestyle a little bit. I mean, minor tweaks.
Drinking lots more water.
More water, cranberry juice.
Yeah.
You know you're getting old when you have cranberry juice in your refrigerator all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think being there for one another is really important. I think sometimes I know just by hearing stories of other marriages or relationships, sometimes spouses, they get frustrated and tired of hearing their spouse complain all the time, or like something's always wrong with them, and they get impatient.
Sure. Yeah.
And that compassion is so necessary to get through those times of life. And you did that for me during the time when I was having the swallowing issue.
Yeah.
Still working through that, and just your patience and your gentleness in dealing with me, and your encouragement for me to go see a specialist. Like, that was all a huge support, because it was a very scary thing. It was like something, of course, I hadn't experienced before, and just a lot of mental things begin to creep in, and being able to express those to you. I don't ever have a problem sharing things with you, because I know you're a safe place and you're compassionate, and you're going to be interested in my best care. Like, you want me to have the best care, starting with yourself. You serve me well, and you guide me towards those steps of getting healthy. And I thank you for that. And I think it's important for a husband and wife to, if you're the spouse who's caring for the sick husband or wife, then praying and asking the Lord to really give you the fruits of the Spirit. I mean, fruits of the Spirit, we need all through marriage, from the day you say, I do. But I think more so in these times where you need love and joy and peace and patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and being faithful, and being self-controlled. And when you want to get upset and angry, like, you have another headache, or you're hurting again. And I think it's also really important as husband and wife to be careful what we say and how we speak, because there's power in your words.
Sure. Right. Well, it goes back to life and death during the power of the tongue. And you don't want to be feeding and speaking into existence negative or sickness. But again, at the same time, having faith and trusting in God in that. And obviously, if you have a really bad problem, obviously go to the doctor and get some help with that. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah. So as a married couple in this season of life, 15 to 30 years, and they're looking at their body and they're wanting to make some positive health adjustments, what would a couple need to do? Like, what have we done recently, and where we've made adjustments in our life when it comes to our health? Obviously, food.
Yeah, food is a definite need for just examining. You need to examine the food that you're eating, because we notice, like, we just can't eat our favorite foods anymore.
Well, we can, just in moderation.
Well, we can, but then we pay for it later too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we then the food, vitamins, being careful to take vitamins, and
different forms of I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, just watching out for
Yeah,
those signs.
sure. Yeah. Even like changing up your exercise regimen, where like before when we are younger, we can probably go to the gym and work out. And even our exercise, we've had to be picky in choosing our exercise regimes,
Yes.
maybe walking. Maybe I know we bought a spin bike, we have a little gym downstairs, but we'd have to do what we possibly can
Mm-hmm.
to get that exercise in. And again, we're not working out to get big and buff, and we're working out mainly to stay healthy, you know?
Yeah, and making adjustments. Again, being patient with one another during the time, because some of the adjustments I've had to make in my eating because of the esophagitis and stuff like that. You've had to come alongside with me and make those adjustments, because when we're making meals, it's really hard just to, okay, you make your meal, I'll make mine. You've come along and you've had to adapt as well. And so when we're talking about being one flesh and being in it together and being in it for the long haul, you tend to have to make some sacrifice for your spouse in those areas as well. Like, who would have known you'd have been eating a veggie burger and liked it?
Yeah.
Things
Or
like
more
that.
salad.
Salad again.
Yeah. Yeah. Soups. I think the changes that you've had to make in your food diet. I've been able to manage alongside of it, and sometimes I have to sneak me in a good
Yeah,
old
you get
fashioned
it
hamburger or a steak or some
during
good
your work
meat.
days.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? We make it work, but
Hmm.
it was an adjustment, and I think we've made some good pivots in it so
Yeah.
far
Together.
together. Yeah.
And that's where we're getting at here. And everything that we've talked about today, it's all about supporting one another together.
Mm-hmm.
We're not in it alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know where I would be if I'd had to do it alone.
Yeah. We're in it together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Anything else you're thinking about in this stage of marriage that would be important for our listeners to know? Or do you think we can put a period on it? And
I would just say planning for the future, maybe.
yeah,
Like we're beginning to look at what retirement might look like, and
sure.
putting in things in place, like talking about wills now. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, some people have had wills way back, but you might want to ask yourself, do you have one?
Mm-hmm.
Because that was a question we had to ask ourselves, and it was just something you didn't really think about.
Sure.
And then we're in this place, and we're now talking about those big decisions,
Mm-hmm.
those choices. So just future
Yeah.
choices and decisions, and with homes, and your all of your goods, assets.
Assets. I'm thinking of just preparing financially, like
Yeah.
you looking
Yeah,
at your
that's what I
retirement
mean.
plan
Mm-hmm.
and your long-term investments, and because we're at a stage where hopefully in the next 10 years, could be a good possibility of retirement. So starting to look at that, what would that look like for us?
Yep.
And so preparing and planning for that. That's a good
Making
one.
those decisions together.
Yeah.
Don't go buy a vacation home or a retirement home in Texas without telling your wife, oh, by the way, when we retire, we're moving to Texas.
Yeah.
Don't make any big decisions
No,
without
that'd be
your
terrible. Don't
spouse.
ever do that. Yeah.
But there's people that do.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's good,
So
and
good.
looking forward to the next 25 years,
Mhm.
30 years.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. So if you are in this stage, in this season of marriage, you're in that 15 to 30 mark. These are some things that we just wanted to share, things that we've learned. And of course, there are probably plenty of more different areas we could have talked about today. But this will actually conclude our mini series of part 3 of the seasons of marriage. And so we want to thank you for tuning in for the past 3 episodes, and we hope they've been very helpful for you
Yeah.
and your marriage. And so a couple things before we sign off. We want to remind you that we have a lot more resources regarding marriage on our website at thefavoritemarriage.com. We do have our YouTube channel, and we'd love for you to subscribe and follow us on our YouTube channel. And then, of course, we're all on all social media platforms. You can always follow us under The Favorite Marriage. And then the last thing is, if you listen to our podcast, whether it be Spotify or Apple or whatever podcast platform, we would ask that you would rate us, review us, give us a 5-star. And as you do that, that would actually help our podcast get more exposure on the, I guess, the World Wide Web and whatever that podcast platform is. So if you can help us do that, that'd be wonderful. And
merchandise. We still have merchandise available, t-shirts, hoodies, crew necks.
yeah.
So go to our website and email us and we can get some merch out to you.
Yep. And of course, we have some different merch on today.
Yeah, this is not ours.
This is not ours.
Shout out to
Funny How Marriage Works.
Yeah.
Michael Jr.
And his beautiful wife.
Yeah. We went to a comedy show. It's called Funny How Marriage Works. And we bought these shirts and it's called Marriage Works. And so shout out to them. And marriage does work.
When God is the center.
When God is the center. Right? Yep. And like always, we pray that you would experience God's favor
on your forever.
Thanks for listening to The Favorite Marriage, where you and your spouse can experience God's favor on your forever. If you enjoy this resource, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time on The Favorite Marriage Podcast.